This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, we have a returning guest. I'm super excited to have him back on the show. His stock has grown leaps and bounds since the last time he's been on the show. Obviously, they got all their ducks in a row. They're doing the right things over there. We're talking about Cortex Business Solutions. We're talking about Joe Leetzow. He is the CEO of that company. Well, they trade on the OTCQX under the ticker symbol CTPNF. They also trade on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol CBX. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Everett. Thanks for having me.
You guys are hitting it out of the park. What gives?
Well, we've had a good year, Everett, and frankly, it's been a couple of good years since I got here. We've recently just released our Q3 to the markets. First cash flow positive quarter in the history of the company. So a couple of things this year. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. The TSX was kind enough to let us open the markets on that day. And then just a few weeks later, we published our first cash flow positive quarter. So by comparison, when I walked in the door 2 years ago, Cortex was bleeding about $7 million a year and had been for almost a decade. So to take what had been about a $60 million loss over that period and get us to a cash flow positive business was a lot of hard work from my staff and a lot of support, frankly, from our clients and from our board, but we're in really good shape and excited to now grow back in growth mode. As you can imagine, 2015 in the oil business being fairly tied to oil and gas with our tech was really tough for us. But, you know, what I will say is people have kind of accepted the new normal within the oil pricing. And our customers are drilling, frankly, fast and furiously. So we're starting to see some of the volume tick up on our network, and we're starting to also see some new customers come into the fold, which has been really exciting.
You know, since the last time you've been on the show back in March of 2017, we've got a lot of new listeners. I want you to explain to them how your business model works when you guys do a business-to-business network that enables electronic invoicing for buying supplies and organization. Explain to my listeners how that platform works and what do you guys do for companies?
Sure. So, Everett, it's a network as a service model. We have two sides basically to the ecosystem that we support. We have a buyer of products and services, and we have a supplier of those products and services. And what Cortex has done is taken what has traditionally been a paper-based transaction and moved it to electronics. So think of it in these terms of normally a commercial transaction is a purchase order, a delivery receipt, or a proof of service being performed, and then an invoice. And what Cortex has done is tied those three math equations together. We do what we call a three-way match on those documents, and we tell the buyer whether or not they're in a position to pay that invoice. It eliminates a lot of labor. It eliminates a lot of very high-priced engineering types looking at the invoices on a line-item basis to see if they're correct. And generally, our customers are saving somewhere around 10 to 1 of what they pay us. So, give us $1, we'll save you 10 is kind of our mantra. And it's really resonated well within our customer base.
You guys have 9,000 companies using this platform. Is that correct?
It is correct. We had a little bit of shrinkage in 2015. Probably went down as low as 8,500 clients. And frankly, the attrition to that was, guys simply going bankrupt within the oil patch. It was a very tough year, particularly for some of the small mom and pops. And now what we're seeing is a couple things. One is funding is available from the banks, financial institutions, factoring companies to help these guys get back into the business or capitalize what they need in order to facilitate the orders that they have. So, that in and of itself is pretty darn exciting too.
I would say 20 to 30% of our listeners are probably business owners. Can anybody use your platform or do they have to be publicly traded?
No, quite the opposite. We did something else this quarter that's been press released and really exciting for those small business owners. What we have found is that about 80%, give or take, of small businesses use QuickBooks or Sage 50 or some of the other, what I say, buy your ERP at Office Depot type products. So we knew that they needed some help on the small side, and so we built what we call small system integration. It allows literally, two guys in a truck-sized business to leverage Cortex. And the second point of your question is anybody can use this, quite frankly, from any business. Now, being Calgary-based and, of course, Canada with its natural resources and mining, it was a natural fit for us to evolve this business over the last decade. But in the past 24 months, we've got some significant landmark business outside of the patch. We have Calgary Sports Entertainment, which is the parent of the Flames. We've got some mining clients. We've got some manufacturing clients. So we're really trying to show the world that this product is much broader in scale than the oil and gas market. But I will also say this, the lowest hanging fruit for us as a business moving forward is in oil and gas, and we're certainly not taking our focus away from that. We're just expanding some focus into some other areas.
So my other question to you, Joel, is that, yes, there was some shrinking in 2015, 2016, but you guys are back to growing at 22%. What gives on that?
Well, frankly, it's a couple of different reasons, Everett. One is that, as I mentioned, there is some capital available. There were a lot of, I'll say the institutional money was running away from oil and gas in 2015 really fast. And the problem is even the guys who had the ability to stay in business had no access to the capital to do it. We've started to see those capital lines free up, whether it's the big nationals, whether it's specific funds. There seems to be quite a bit of cash now available back in the oil patch, which helps our clients. It also helps us from the perspective of healthy companies equal good customers, right? And these companies are definitely in a more healthy way. The other thing that we're seeing is a fairly significant surge in the U.S. market, whether it's the Permian Basin or some of the other plays in the United States. Our U.S. business is definitely outpacing our Canadian business on this recovery. And I think it's simply because the cost to drill in the States right now is a little bit less than, extruding from the oil sands up here in Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. My guest today is Joe Leetzow. He is the CEO of Cortex Business Solutions. They trade on the OTCQX under the ticker symbol CTPNF. They also trade on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol CBX. They have a float of about 9 million shares. Their market cap's around 35 million, which I find is still very undervalued what they're doing over there. July is your end of the year, and you guys are making your last payment to your customers, a rebate of $300,000 cash. You guys are improving your bottom line. Can you tell us about, are you still on plan for the year 2020?
We are very much still on plan for the year 2020, which for us is all about the concept of doubling the revenue of the company. So, again, if I think about the year 2015, when I came in, we were running about 8.5 million in reoccurring revenue. We're now up to about 11.2 on a run rate. My goal is to get that to 20 million as a top line run rate by 2020. In order to do that, we've got to basically grow in the 20s this year and the 30s next year, and then accelerate that into the next 6 months of the third year. And I feel really confident at this point, looking at our pipeline of business and looking at where things are going. It's not going to be easy. We don't set goals to be easy, but I think it will be obtainable and achievable, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
If I'm interested in processing some of my paper through your platform, I can go to www.cortex, that's CORTEX.net. Is that correct?
That is correct. And if you're interested, go to the website, look us up. There's an 800 number for you to call. We have, friendly people ready to take your call and help you out with, getting into the program. And as I suggested, with a 10-to-1 savings, I'd like to say we pay our customers to be customers. Come let us pay you.
In closing here, Joel, is there anything that we didn't get to touch upon that you would like to get out to the listeners?
Yeah, I think just to sum it up, Everett, when I look at, what are the catalysts that make this year unique for us? Well, we've cut off a $1.4 million amortization a year. To your point, we are about to write a check in the next week for about $300,000 cash. It basically pays off the final rebate payment of a $2.4 million debt. So when I take these things, the cash flow positive, and I put them together, we've got a really healthy, sustainable business for the first time. And those metrics, in proving so, should put us at a really nice EBITDA run rate in the 20 by 20 plan, dropping somewhere between 5 to 7 million of EBITDA to the bottom line off of that 20 million. And I think based on your statement of, undervalued, we have 4 analysts covering us today. Unanimously, they are declaring that we are undervalued, and I think it is worth folks' time to check us out.
Well, here's what we learned today. We learned that Cortex Business Solution is hitting the ball out of the park, 1. 2, they turned cash positive for the first time in the history of the company. Joel, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. Please, don't wait forever to come back on. It's always great to have you on the show and get an update on your business.
Thank you, Everett. Always a pleasure.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.